Marcus pressed himself deeper into the shadows between the dumpster and brick wall, his weathered hands trembling as he watched the scene unfold 30 feet away. The female police officer had no idea what was coming. She was young, maybe late 20s, with her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun beneath her cap. Officer Rodriguez, according to the nameplate he could just make out under the streetlight. She was walking her usual beat, the one Marcus had observed for months from his makeshift shelter in the alley. Always professional, always alert, but tonight she seemed distracted, checking her phone between glances at the empty storefronts. That's when Marcus saw them. 3 men emerged from the parking garage across the street, moving with the calculated precision of predators. They weren't random muggers. Marcus had seen enough of those in his 8 years on the streets. These men wore dark clothing that seemed too coordinated, too purposeful. The one in front kept touching something beneath his jacket, and Marcus's stomach dropped when he caught the glint of metal. Marcus had learned to read danger like other people read newspapers. It was a survival skill that had kept him alive through countless nights when being invisible meant the difference between safety and becoming another statistic. But this wasn't about him. The officer stopped at the corner, still absorbed in her phone. The 3 men had positioned themselves perfectly, one approaching from her left, 2 circling around to block her retreat. It was an ambush, and she didn't see it coming. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to stay hidden, to protect himself the way he'd learned to do. Getting involved meant exposure, meant questions he couldn't answer, meant risking the fragile stability of his street corner existence. But something in Officer Rodriguez's posture reminded him of his daughter Evelyn. The confident stride, the way she tilted her head when concentrating. Evelyn would be about the same age now, if she was still alive. If she still thought about the father who'd lost everything to PTSD and alcohol, who'd disappeared into the streets rather than drag his family down with him. The lead attacker was 15 feet away now. Officer Rodriguez finally looked up from her phone, but it was too late. The man's hand was already moving toward his weapon. Marcus didn't remember making the decision to act. One moment he was frozen in the shadows, the next he was stumbling out of the alley, his voice cracking as he called out in the loudest whisper shout he could manage. "Don't talk," he hissed urgently, catching Officer Rodriguez's attention while trying not to alert the attackers. "Behind you, 3 men, gun." Officer Rodriguez's training kicked in instantly. Her hand moved to her weapon as she spun around, taking in the tactical situation in a split second. The lead attacker, caught off guard by the sudden awareness of his target, hesitated for a crucial moment. "Police, hands where I can see them," Rodriguez commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd faced danger before. The 3 men scattered like roaches when the lights come on. The one with the gun fired a wild shot that sparked off a lamppost before disappearing into the maze of downtown alleys. The other 2 ran in opposite directions, their coordinated plan completely unraveled by Marcus's warning. Rodriguez immediately called for backup while keeping her weapon drawn, scanning the area for additional threats. Only when she was certain the immediate danger had passed did she turn toward the alley where Marcus had retreated back into the shadows. Sir, I need to talk to you." Marcus remained motionless, hoping the darkness would swallow him again. He'd done his part. Now he just wanted to disappear. "Please," Rodriguez said, her voice softer now. "I know you're there. You saved my life." Slowly, reluctantly, Marcus emerged from the shadows. Under the streetlight, he knew he looked like what people expected from someone living on the streets. Worn clothing, unkempt beard, the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much. He waited for the familiar look of disgust or fear. Instead, Rodriguez holstered her weapon and approached him with her hands visible and non-threatening. "Thank you," she said simply. "That took courage." Marcus shook his head, looking down at his worn boots. "Just did what anyone would do." "No," Rodriguez said firmly. "Most people would have looked the other way. What's your name?" "Marcus," he said after a long pause. "Marcus Thompson." "Well, Marcus Thompson, you just prevented what could have been a very bad night for both of us." She studied his face in the dim light.
Those weren't random muggers, were they? Marcus met her eyes for the first time. There was intelligence there, and something else. Recognition of shared experience, perhaps. No, ma'am. Too organized, too focused. They were specifically after you. Rodriguez nodded grimly. I've been working a case involving a drug trafficking ring. Made some arrests last week. I guess they decided to send a message. Backup arrived then, 2 patrol cars with flashing lights that made Marcus instinctively step back toward his alley. But Rodriguez held up a hand. It's okay, she told him, then turned to brief her colleagues on what had happened. Marcus listened as she described his actions, calling him a hero and instrumental in preventing an assassination attempt. The words felt foreign to his ears. It had been so long since anyone had described him as anything other than a problem to be solved or a nuisance to be moved along. As the other officers processed the scene and launched a manhunt for the attackers, Rodriguez returned to Marcus. I want to do something for you, she said. Help you get back on your feet. I know people, social services, job placement programs. Marcus almost smiled. That's kind of you, officer, but I've heard those promises before. This is different, Rodriguez insisted. She pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. My personal number. Call me tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. Marcus took the card, feeling its weight like a lifeline he'd forgotten existed. Why? Because 8 months ago, someone gave me a second chance when I needed it most. Time to pass it forward. She paused, studying his face again. And because I have a feeling you haven't always lived on the streets. Marcus looked up sharply. Military bearing, the way you assessed the tactical situation, communicated efficiently under pressure. Army? Marines, Marcus said quietly. Long time ago. Not so long that you forgot how to serve, Rodriguez replied. Thank you again, Marcus, for everything. As the police cars pulled away and the street returned to its usual emptiness, Marcus stood alone under the streetlight, turning the business card over in his weathered fingers. For the first time in 8 years, the shadows felt less like a refuge and more like a prison. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to step back into the light. He looked toward the alley that had been his home, then at the card in his hand. Tomorrow, he decided, he would make that call. Tonight had reminded him of something he'd almost forgotten, that sometimes the most important battles aren't about saving yourself. Sometimes they're about saving someone else.